In our example here, we want to find QN and PO. But before we do that, remember, we can't set up proportions unless the triangles are similar. And look at that. We have corresponding angles congruent by angle, angle. These triangles are similar. The one thing you got to be careful of is, like we're doing x and x plus 2 1/4. Make sure you're comparing the sides of the triangles. So x is the side of the small triangle, MQN. Well, let's point that out to you here. So MQN is one triangle, and then MPQ is my other triangle. So if I'm going to compare the sides, I need to know the length of M to P, which is 8. I could have done it M to Q also, but I'm going to stay away from those fractions if I don't have to. So I'm going to say X, my small triangle, corresponds to X plus 2 1/4. I'm going to write that as 2.25. You can always change a fraction to a decimal unless it repeats. Then if it repeats, you better work with a fraction. And then we'll say 5 to 8. Now, I don't have any common factors. I don't have anything that reduces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear my fractions. Some of you might call it cross multiplying. I found that a little magic. So I'm just going to say I'm going to multiply both sides by 8 and x plus 2.25. 8 and x plus 2.25. 2, it's not writing, 2, 5. Okay, so my x plus 2.25 is reduced. I don't have a fraction. I get 8x. Over here, my 8's reduced. I'm going to distribute my 5 to each of them, so I'll get 5x plus, and then if I take 5 times 2.25, and remember, 5 times 2 is 10. And then I'll take 0.25 times 5. I'll add those up. And we get 11.25. And then I will minus 5x from both sides. And you'll get 3x equals 11.25. And I'll divide both sides by 3. So if I take 11.25 and I divide that by 3, x is 3.75. Don't stop there, because the question does not ask for x. It asks for QN. Well, look at that. QN is x. So that part works out pretty nice. So at QN is 3.75, but then I want to find P to Q. So P to Q is going to be 3.75 plus 2.25. 3.75 plus 2.25. I'll get P to Q is 6. Make sure when you work on your assignment, you answer the question that's being asked, not just find X. Now, I do believe on the computer assignment, they will ask you for both of them, so you got to fill in both of them. But on a test or a quiz, remember we have a quiz tomorrow, is make sure you answer the question that's being asked. Now let's take a look at an application problem here. It says Julia is designing an A-frame house. The entire house will be 40 feet tall, so we can see that height is 40 feet, and the base of the house is going to be 60 feet. I'm going to highlight that. So 60 feet is right there. It goes all the way across. So I got my bottom there. Okay? She's going to build a second floor balcony. That's cool. Balconies are always cool. And she wants it to be 15 feet above the ground. The left side of the house is going to be 50 feet long, and the balcony will intersect 18.75 feet from the bottom. The peak of the house is directly above the midpoints of the base of the balcony. Calculate the total length of the balcony. So in other words, I want to find, let me change colors here. I want to find this length here, ED. And you can't really see that. But what I'm going to do then is I'm going to compare my triangle AE and my big triangle. I guess I don't have a point over there. So I'm going to call this length the balcony. Let's call that X. So I'm going to say X in my small triangle corresponds to 60 in my big triangle. And then I don't know my small triangle, do I? So I have to go over here. To find AE, I'm going to take 50 minus 18.75. My decimals aren't quite showing up there. So 50 minus 18.75, I'll get 31.25 for the top portion of my triangle. So I'll say 31.25 over my whole length is 50. And then, to solve for x, I'll just multiply both sides by 60. Remember, 60 is in my numerator. So the 60s reduce on the left. 31.25 times 60, and I'll divide that by 50. And I get 37.5. So my balcony is 37.25 feet long. On Monday, we'll go through a different way of approaching this, but for now, let's just do it this way. Now, some of you might have noticed, geez, isn't there an easy way to do this? Well, yeah, there is. What happens is, if I have a parallel line, it's going to cut the sides proportionally to one another. Okay? The key is it's got to be parallel. And I don't like that extra tick mark there. So let's put this in a picture. So if I have a triangle and I draw a line parallel to my side. So we're going to say these two lines are parallel. I don't have to know big triangle and little triangle. What I can say, let's call this top A, and this B, and this C, and that D. So I could say A is to B as C is to D. And then, yeah.